Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. Are you ready to unlock the full potential and growth in your business? You've already crossed 7 figures in sales, but the challenge is knowing how to take your business to the next level. Join Josh Hadley, an 8-figure Ecom business owner and investor, as he interviews highly successful business owners. Get ready, because you're going to learn specific actions you can take today to help your business reach its full potential and leave a lasting impact on the world.
Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hadley, where I interview the top business leaders in e-commerce. Past guests include Kevin King, Stephen Pope, and Howard Tai. Today, I'm speaking with Amy Weiss, CEO of Amazing at Home e-commerce consulting, and we will be talking a lot about her experience in consulting other businesses, the good things that she's seen businesses do, and also a lot of the mistakes that she's seeing other Amazon sellers make and how to correct those mistakes. This episode is brought to you by Ecom Breakthrough Consulting, where I help 7-figure companies grow to 8 figures and beyond. Listen, Amy, I started Hadley Designs back in 2015, and it took me 7 years to grow it to an 8-figure brand. There were a lot of mistakes that I made along the way that made the path of getting to 8 figures take a lot longer than it needed to. There were a lot of obstacles and roadblocks that I faced, not only mentally as to whether could I be a real CEO, could I lead an organization, or could my brand survive? Would I have the cash flow needed to be able to, continue to purchase inventory and grow the business? For our listeners that are hitting similar plateaus and roadblocks, if you want to learn the next steps to take your brand and business to the next level, then go to ecombreakthrough.com. That's Ecom with 2 M's to learn more. And as a special bonus to my podcast listeners, this month I'm giving away one $10,000 comprehensive business strategy audit session at no cost. All you need to do is email me at josh@ecombreakthrough.com. And in the subject line, say strategy audit, and then plead your case as to why I should choose you and your brand to work with this month. And if you don't get chosen this month, don't worry, you'll be entered to win for future months to come. But today, I'm super excited to introduce you to Amy Weiss. Amy is the CEO of Amazing at Home e-commerce consulting, a world-renowned company that has helped thousands of brands launch private label products on Amazon and beyond. Amy's knowledge in product development, sourcing, marketing, and sales have enabled her to help countless entrepreneurs develop their own successful businesses. Amy's courses and consulting are ranked among the best in the world in Amazon Seller Poll. She shares her skills teaching classes at business organizations locally in San Antonio, Texas, coaching entrepreneurs around the world through virtual coaching sessions and in-person events at amazingathome.com. She also covers these concepts on her e-commerce tips and tricks podcast called The Seller Roundtable. So welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you for having me, Josh. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on. Amy, we first met back at Prosper a couple of years ago. You invited a group of friends to go to lunch. And then I was in the midst of this new group of friends that you had met. And so I love that you are always, one thing I admire about you, you are always networking with people and talking and the social butterfly, so to speak. But there's so many people that know and respect you because you are so outgoing. So thank you again for that lunch a couple of years ago.
Yeah, thank you for the lunch. It was so great to get to know, one of the things that's great about going to these e-commerce events is there are so many opportunities to network. And you just grab a couple people and say, hey, you guys want to go to lunch and talk? And that's what we did that day. And I got to learn more about your business and how you really had mastered the hiring process, which is something that is so tough for entrepreneurs to go from self-employed to business owner and have that joy that comes with being a business owner. And so you started talking and sharing, and I was like, wow. And you ended up coming in our mastermind group and talking about your processes. And that was so impactful for our group of people that are on the same path. And your processes for hiring, honestly, I mean, I've paid for courses on this. I've read so many books on this. And you really simplified the process and you helped me in my own businesses. So I have you to thank for that.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Hey, it doesn't matter what the content is until you start taking action. So I'm happy to hear that you've been able to have some success with hiring there. Now, Amy, you have so much going on. Why don't you give people kind of a lay of the land of what all you've got going on? Because you have your own e-commerce brand you're working on. You have the consulting company. You also are involved in the sourcing and from Mexico and all of those trips that you've been putting together that I'd like you to talk about. And then last but not least, on Facebook, because I've seen your post there, you also, loan out or rent out your vehicles on Turo. We could have a whole podcast just on your stories there. But Amy, why don't you give everybody a quick rundown of what all you got going on?
Well, it's so beautiful having the world of e-commerce. There's so many things you can do. And I've been selling on Amazon myself since 2007. And of course, as a hobby, not as like a major business or anything. I was in the United States Air Force and just started flipping my textbooks. I saw that little sell yours here button on Amazon and I was intrigued. I've always been somebody with a little side hustle or side learning thing going on. And I like to learn new things. I'm a sponge. So I have a little bit of a squirrel chasing problem. I like to learn new things and I'm never afraid to go after them. And so one of my skills as an entrepreneur is honing that, really, focusing on those things that are making the most impact and keeping, each pipeline kind of moving along. So yes, I'm an Amazon seller myself and a brand owner. I invented a product in the cat space. I invented a better way to clean the cat litter box based on a problem I was having. And that's kind of what started the rest of my businesses, because when I was inventing this product from scratch, I ran into so many roadblocks. I tried out for Shark Tank. I
don't think I knew that.
What?
I don't think I knew that portion. Well, that's a story in and of itself.
I know, right? I built my prototype. I built a 3D printer. I realized that I couldn't source from China because it was too expensive. The product was too large. So that was another hurdle to overcome. I had to source in the United States. And I was like, wow, how am I called all these factories and none of them wanted to give me the time of day because contract manufacturing really isn't a huge thing in the US. Of course, if you're sourcing something that's already being made here, like printables or facial lotion, something like that, it's very easy to just white label something in the United States. But to private label, to find a manufacturer, that was a huge hurdle for me to overcome. I basically had to pitch a business that really didn't even have legs yet in order to get a manufacturer to take on my product. And so I ran into all these hurdles. I contacted design companies to help me get my design manufactured in CAD because my product is plastic and needed to be injection molded. And all these design companies wanted $30,000 to turn my drawing into another drawing. And Josh, I've been in a male-dominated career field most of my life, being in the Air Force. And I've done a lot of things that would intimidate a lot of people. And so I don't give up very easily. I've failed a lot. And, in the military, they kind of teach you just keep moving, And so I just decided, look, this is really making me mad that I'm running into so many roadblocks here. This can't be impossible. Brands bring new products to market all the time. So I just let that fuel me. I let it motivate me. I was like, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to share with anybody who will listen along the way. And that's what I did. So I started sharing. I just started going on Facebook and YouTube and being like, this is what I learned about patents today. This is what I talked to this person. I learned this, whatever. And before I knew it, I started gaining a following and people couldn't believe I was giving away all this information for free. And I didn't care, I was like, people join me. This is a lonely journey, let's figure this out together. And started writing listings to pay off my loans. My loans cost me $42,000.
Wow.
So Yeah, so I started writing listings on Fiverr, and I had this knack, I was in cybersecurity before. So I have this SEO knack where I know how to take keywords and take basically a very saturated product and assign new keywords and help people sell out. So I was doing that with all these different listings. I would just find new keywords for them. And all these people who were hiring me on Fiverr to write their listings and selling out of these saturated products were going, how'd you do that? And can you teach me? And I kept saying no. So I was like, I don't consult. I still had my full-time job for the Air Force. I was still working on launching my own products and figuring out importing and sourcing and all those and manufacturing and all those things. And finally I said yes. I was like, okay, whatever, just $50, meet me online. Let's do it. And before I knew it, those people started having massive success. And I was like, okay, this is the thing. So that's how Amazing at Home was born. I had a domain name. I built the website over the weekend just to get off of Fiverr because Fiverr's fees are so high. And just really enjoyed helping people and being on this journey with others. So I continued to build that community. And then I started taking people to China and sourcing trips. And here we are all these years later, taking people to Mexico now and owning my own trade show in Mexico as well.
Awesome. What a journey. And I love that, similar journey to myself where, you were working full time as you got your business started, right? You didn't just jump in cold turkey and you're like, this sounds like fun. Let's just jump in. I loved, my job at American Airlines. I continue to call it, that's my venture capital that I received, right? Because that's what paid the bills. That's what allowed us to keep moving forward and reinvest in the business time and time again. So I think that's an important principle for people is that, go in methodically, don't jump ship just because you have one good idea one night. It's like, go prove it out because you're going to face a lot of obstacles just like you talked about, Amy. And that's what I would love to dive into. I would love to, prior to this podcast, we talked about a few of those mistakes you've seen other people make and some of the challenges you faced in your own brand. And so let's discuss some of those mistakes and then also the successes that you see people having as you do consulting for them. But before we dive into that, let's go ahead and talk about your most recent obstacle that you've faced with your own products and, what have you done as a result of that and any advice you would give to the audience?
Well, yeah, we were talking about it's Q4, the most amazing time of the year. And my best selling product has been out of stock for over a month, at least $40,000 lost. And that really sucks. Really sucks. So, there's been so many supply chain changes with Amazon, right? So we had created a shipment. Amazon just switched to a new shipment layout, I guess you could call it. And this has really caused problems. In fact, I went to Amazon Accelerate, which was a conference in Seattle, and just to meet with Amazon shipping people and talk to them and get some solutions because we were having so many problems where they would give us a pickup time. We have our own warehouse, very close to our home. And that's where we keep all of our inventory and everything like that. We have a loading dock and everything. So we ship right out of San Antonio, Texas. And we were, creating our shipping plans and Amazon would assign pickup time frame, 8-hour time frame on a day. And they did not give a phone number or anything to call, just nothing. You can't give them a phone number. There's nothing. You're just expected to be available for 8 hours.
That's crazy.
We have a warehouse, but we don't man it. It's like storage, right? It's not. So anyway, we go there and we put up signs everywhere that says, call this number for pickups, and luckily there's another business there. It's actually our gym. So they can call us if somebody shows up. And so we're just trying to figure out, all right, how do we be there for 8 hours and not miss a pickup? And Amazon doesn't show up. Their carrier does not show up the whole 8 hours, nothing. And so we call, we open a case. Hey, the provider didn't pick up. They give us a new pickup date 2 weeks later. And it's multiple carriers. It's not just one, it's multiple carriers. So, one carrier could be picking up a shipment going this way and another carrier could be picking up a shipment going this way. So we ended up merchant fulfilling some of those products because we couldn't wait 2 weeks. We would have been out of stock. So we merchant fulfilled some of those products and we had 81 units left. So for them to pick up, and which was the other shipment. Well, the wrong carrier picked it up. So the wrong carrier picked it up and it ended up being stranded because it was the wrong, I think, ARN number assigned to it. And so we had to track that down, get Amazon to assign a new ARN to it. Then they dropped it off to that fulfillment center with the proper ARN on it. And it took over a month to get checked in. In the meantime, our other stuff in China was delayed. We have one component of the product. So this product is made in the USA, but there are different components that we ship in from other countries because we can't get everything in the US. And so we were waiting for, we had some delays in China. There's been a lot of COVID delays, stuff like that. So we're waiting for this one component to get shipped in and then also waiting for those units to be checked in at Amazon. And so, we basically missed it. And today, the 81 units became available. And luckily, our other shipment should be here any day now. And then we can be fully in stock again. But between, supply chain challenges in the US, working with factories in the US, I'm trying to actually move my factory from the US to Mexico right now because it's like sometimes it's 9 weeks lead time. Sometimes it's 13 weeks lead time. It is very difficult to work with a supplier in the US. There's no negotiation. The prices go up, the prices go up. At least for a plastic injection product, you may have more control if you're white labeling something or doing other things. But in my case, it's been very tough working with the US. And so, as much as I would love to continue it, I'm looking for other alternatives. Just like every seller, you should never put all your eggs in one supplier basket. So maybe I keep working with the supplier in the US, but then I start some operations in Mexico to kind of add some diversity and then, eventually move things over. But that's what I'm working on right now. And those were some of my lessons learned. So what could I have done? I really, in terms of troubleshooting this, one of the biggest lessons that I learned in the military is it's, as long as you learn something, as long as you learn and you identify what we call an instructional fix for whatever problem you face, and you don't repeat the same mistake over and over again, then it's actually a win because you can prevent that thing from happening again. So now what we're working on is identifying, okay, what could we have done in this situation? One, we could have made sure that we weren't going to run out of stock of merchant fulfilled products. So at least while we had supply chain issues with Amazon, we could have continued to merchant fulfill instead of being completely out of stock. So that was a lesson learned there. We've implemented a new inventory tracking system by Demand Strategic called Stock Flow. It is incredible. It's even for seasonal products. It identifies your sales peaks and it tells you exactly how much stock to send into Amazon every week. Pulls your sales data, everything like that. So we've been utilizing that, and that has really, really helped us. So the rest of our products, which we've had issues in the past, staying in stock and making sure we're sending enough into FBA and all of that, have remained in stock all of Q4. So that was our instructional fix. That was our lesson learned. And we look forward to, in the future, not running into this issue again, worrying about the things that we can control. We can't always control Amazon. We can control merchant fulfill. We can control our inventory. And so we've implemented fixes for that.
Awesome. Now, Amy, I love that you've taken away some adjustments in your own processes in order to overcome those obstacles, because that's what I feel like is one of the most important things, just as you mentioned, is being able to learn from the mistakes or the challenges or the roadblocks that you face. Because if you just say, hey, thank heavens we made it through this time, we made it through just by the skin of our teeth, or, or maybe we actually completely failed. And if you're just like, well, we'll try again next year, right? It's like one of my favorite tenets or core values that we have in our business is never relying on what's worked in the past to do it again, right? To just acting as though what worked in the past is going to work the exact same in the future, and vice versa. If it didn't work in the past, expecting that, well, that was just a weird nuance, so we'll just follow the same process next year, but hopefully those problems don't arise again. So I think that's important for the audience to take away. But I love what you talked about in terms of, diversifying your risk with manufacturing and supply chain. And you've been able to find a lot of that in Mexico. So why don't you tell us more about Mexico? Why have you been so invested lately into, sourcing from Mexico?
Well, it's really, we used to go to China all the time. We would go twice a year during Canton Fair times. And I still source from China. I love my manufacturers in China. They're wonderful people. They're very efficient, really great. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with China. But at the end of the day, one of the biggest things that all of us have to realize is that we have options, and that, we don't ever, whether it comes to only selling on Amazon, putting your eggs all in that one sales channel basket, or only using FBA. What happened during the pandemic? Everybody who was only using FBA, their stuff got stranded. Meanwhile, we tripled our sales because we were able to merchant fulfill. So that was, a huge learning thing. And so many people are learning that. With restock limits, we talked about that, hey, maybe we need to start digging more into these other sales channels so that we are able to drive more traffic to Amazon and have even greater restock limits now that things are changing, right? So I think it's important to never put all your eggs in one basket and to always know what your options are. And so Mexico was a natural potential solution. If we look at injection molding and manufacturing around the world, Mexico's number 2 in injection molding, right behind China. So, when we look at even electronics, Latin America is just as high in electronics manufacturing as China is. And a lot of people don't realize that. One of our speakers on the Mexico trip, he's an engineer, and he specializes in helping electronics companies move their supply chain from China to Mexico. Big companies like Seagate have completely moved manufacturing to Mexico. Chinese factories, major factories in China, are now reopening new facilities in Mexico. Why? It makes sense, right? It makes sense. You've got free trade. As long as your product is 70% produced in Mexico, you've got the free trade. So that's a wonderful opportunity there. You actually have lower labor costs in Mexico than you do in China. China labor costs have risen. And you have a highly educated and motivated workforce in Mexico, which that is also changing in China quite a bit. We're all finding with our factories and, talking with my factory owners, every year after Chinese New Year, a lot of their employees do not return. And it's very hard for them because e-commerce has really taken off in China. And so a lot of these, it used to be you could walk through a factory in China a few years ago and they didn't have, they didn't sell in e-commerce. Nowadays, that's nearly impossible to find a factory that doesn't sell in e-commerce. So the workforce is evolving in China, and it's causing some issues in terms of supply chain, not only for labor, for quality control, so there's even the Chinese are looking for alternatives to different places to open up factories and things like that. So I think that all of us have to evolve. If we look at any company that does not evolve with the times, what do we find? We look at like the Toys R Us stories, and we look at, the top 50 retailers in the United States of America also have e-commerce websites. So it's very important for us to pay attention and make sure that we're looking at, okay, what's next? And also when we look at, how many issues did we have with ports being backed up, and with our supply chain just being at a complete stoppage And we were all talking about, man, for Q4 this last year, you better get your stuff in by August, because there's no way the October timeframe is dead, because there was so much, port back up and everything prior to this Q4. So this year it was a little bit better. We had some catch up, but we really need to be paying attention. And so for me, I'm right here in San Antonio, Texas. I travel to Mexico a lot. I love Mexico. And I always see all these things, even here in San Antonio, made in Mexico, right on our grocery shelves and everything. And I'm like, where are these factories? I'm just being a sourcing expert in all these other countries. I'm like, how am I not understanding what's going on in Mexico, the potential in Mexico? And so I thought to myself, you can't really find these factories on Alibaba. A lot of them don't have a web presence. They haven't needed to. So we thought, my partner, Tim Jordan, and I, we were like, let's just go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's take people to Mexico. Let's go. Let's discover it ourselves. See what's going on. Well, little did we know, there aren't any multi-category trade shows in Mexico. There's no, you can find huge automotive trade shows, or plastics trade shows, or gifts or toys. You can find that. That's great. But if you want multiple categories like global sources or AST or Canton Fair, you're not going to find that in Latin America. So we crazy entrepreneurs, what did we do? We said, let's start. And it's been a wild ride. It's been a wild journey. Our first event was in June, and we had over 700 sellers show up for that, and just over 100 suppliers show up for the trade show. And it was so wonderful to learn of all the capabilities in Mexico and the warmth of the people, and to truly just start this journey of figuring out what sourcing in Mexico looks like.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like you found a problem and you've created that solution to that problem. And I'm excited to see how that new Mexico-style Canton Fair grows over the next few years. So thanks for starting that, Amy, for all of us other sellers. The other thing I would love to dive into here, Amy, is as people come to you asking for help in their businesses, wanting to grow their brands, what are some of the mistakes that you are seeing, and maybe some case studies that you can share? People that have come to you with problems, what type of problems are you seeing sellers making?
I would say the biggest issue that I see is that people do not know their numbers. I think all of us were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when we start a new business, and we are in love with the idea of making a lot of money, getting that freedom. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's what's going to drive you to keep going. It's very scary to take a leap on your own. But a lot of the people, that's one of the first things that I go over with people. It's like, what's your landed cost? How much are you paying your supplier? Who is your supplier? Do you even know who they are? Or have you just had a chat conversation on Alibaba? So the thing is, we all know nowadays, we really need to differentiate our products. We need to have a way of protecting them. We can't just copy other people's products. And it's very tough to just white label anymore, because sellers are smart and they're now protecting their copyrights. They're doing design patents. They're getting smarter, right? And so not only do we need to take the time to differentiate and learn product development and learn negotiation, learn how to vet suppliers and really develop those partnerships, but also we need to understand how we're going to become profitable and the costs that are involved. So 90% of the mistakes that I see people make when they come to me is they don't really know where the money is going. They know that they're not making any, right? Amazon holds on to like 50% of it anyway, right? In account reserves. So that doesn't help us. But people don't realize that this is a scale game. And we need to know our numbers. You don't have to be an accountant. I highly recommend you hire one, but that doesn't mean that you don't need to be aware of your numbers. You need to know what your costs are. You need to know how to run your numbers in terms of understanding how much is this, how much for this unit, this is called unit economics. For this unit, for this SKU, how much is it costing me to acquire a customer through advertising? how much profit am I making on average? How do I calculate that? You can actually calculate that very simply with some basic reports. So I usually run through that with new clients from the very beginning and say, okay, what's our landed cost? And do we have enough from landed cost to retail price to actually be profitable? And what I like to see is a minimum 7x multiplier for products. Now, unless you're selling a ton of volume, right? If you're making your own Walmart on Amazon and you have a ton of SKUs and you've got a narrower margin, but you're making a lot of sales and your advertising cost is lower, that's great. But if you're a new brand with 1 or 2 products, you need to make sure that you're, number one, differentiating in a way that matters to the customer so that you don't get stuck in a price and review war. Number 2, making sure that you're protecting your supply chain so you actually understand who your manufacturer is, and you're vetting them. You're not having just an Alibaba chat conversation. You're doing real negotiation. That supplier is your partner. You have contracts with that supplier so that you're able to actually protect your supply chain. The amount of suppliers that are selling against their own clients is astounding. It's just insane. So if you don't have those contracts, I'm actually in litigation in China right now with one of my suppliers.
Oh, wow.
And it has been a long road, and I'm so grateful to have my attorney in China. I'm so grateful that I set up contracts from the very beginning. But a lot of the problems that I help sellers with stem from their supplier knocking them off, stem from them not having enough margin and not even understanding who their supplier is. You can't have a contract with a trading company. They're sourcing from a factory. So even if you're just white labeling something and you can protect it through copyrights or whatever, then you can get away with a trading company. That's okay. You can have a basic contract with them. That's okay. But if you're developing a product, you want to make sure you're not sourcing that through a trading company because you cannot protect it. So these kinds of lessons, these are the things that we need to learn from the beginning. So many people are just starting Amazon, brands on Amazon and just watching some YouTube video, teaching them to source it for $5 off of Alibaba and sell it for $15. And then before they know it, by the time they come to me and we do their numbers and we realize they're losing money with every sale. They're paying Amazon to sell their products. And the amount of people that I find this with is astounding. So really turn it around. I think that's the big question. So if you're here, you're listening to this podcast today and you're like, I don't know. I'm not one of those people. I'm not making any money. I'm making sales, but I don't know really what's going on. How do we turn it around? And this is what I work with people. So what we do is, first of all, we look at your supply chain. Can we recover any money? Can we source this product for a lower price and maintain the quality? And, do you have enough margin to make money on this product? And if not, can we fix that margin? The second thing is, based on your sales goals, is there enough space in the market? So a lot of people will come to me and they'll go, I want to make, I really need to be making 20,000 a month on this one product. And I will ask, what are you basing that on? Is there another competitor that you think you can steal market share from? We all have these great tools. What are you basing that on? Sometimes people don't know. They just kind of willy-nilly pie in the sky. So we need to use data and look at the data that's out there and go, okay, this competitor is, some of my closest competitors are making X, Y, or Z. I realistically think I can steal some of that market share with the following tactics. And so we'll identify those tactics, right? And then we'll get to work taking some of that market share. If we get together and we don't see a way where we can steal market share, where we can grow this product, then we need to go back to the drawing board and change our strategy up, right? If we can't recover costs, if this is just a price and review war product and we need to move on and do better, maybe we can expand the product line through changing up the product slightly. We could differentiate a little bit more. We could resource it from a new supplier. A lot of people just totally miss the opportunity of variations and multi-packs. I mean, that alone can just totally, I know, Josh, with your brands, you've done that to, just the nth degree to here, so like looking at your existing products that are selling well, your kings, your cash kings, and going, how can I build on this, right? Can I sell it in a 2? What's the buyer behavior, right? Can I change the colors? Can I offer more on that same listing with that same supplier that's already doing really well for me? So looking at those opportunities to grow your brand, knowing your numbers, and then making sure that you're paying attention to your supply chain and you're differentiating in a way that matters to the customer. If you do that from the beginning, you're going to have an incredible chance at being very successful in this business.
I love that. Amy, I want to dive into, you had mentioned, as you kind of take a look at the market, you said, hey, can we identify some tactics to maybe steal share away from some of our competitors? Do you mind going through a list of what maybe some of those tactics might be for people to have in their mind of strategies when they enter a new market, of ways that they can penetrate and gain market share?
Well, I know people can't see me right now, but when Josh mentioned that, my face just lit up because this is my favorite part. I love making sales. It's the war planner in me, it's the war fighter in me. I'm like, yes, this is war, let's go. So I get very excited about that. Let's get into it. The first thing that you need to pay attention to is your placement, right? Think of this page 1, your customer's page 1 for your medium to long tail keyword. How can you improve your placement? And there are several ways to do that. The first and easiest way is SEO, guys. We're in e-commerce, right? If the customer can't find us, they can't buy from us. I have a client that makes a dog bowl. It's very custom. It's very cool. And so, we found that medium to long tail keyword. We found her customer's page 1, and she was nowhere to be found, organically or in PPC advertising. So I'm searching just like the customer would, and I'm looking on the page, and her product is so much better. It's cooler. It would totally stand out. It would totally convert. It's at a better price. It looks better. It's awesome. So I'm like, why isn't she on this page 1? Okay. Clicking through, I'm looking at it. And she was on page 3 organically, and her ads were nowhere to be found. What a lot of people don't realize is if your organic rank sucks for your customer's page 1, your ad placement is going to suck too, because PPC goes off of relevancy. If you have the highest bid in a PPC war, but your product is not relevant, your placement for your PPC is going to suck. So the first thing that you must do is play the SEO game. So, we got to put our little hacker hats on, and we need to look at those keywords, and we need to look at, okay, are we playing to the search engine? Are we looking super relevant for this medium to long tail keyword to the search engine? And so with her, I noticed she didn't have this, it was like 4 or 5 word keyword phrase anywhere in her title. Intact. Phrases intact are so important for SEO and relevancy. And so a lot of times when I'm reviewing listings, I do free listing reviews for people. But when I look at a listing and I look at the potential for relevancy, I'll see individual keywords smattered throughout the listing. That does nothing for the search engine. It does nothing for relevancy. When that search engine crawls your listing, it's looking for those keywords intact, those keyword phrases intact, and it's going, ding, oh, okay, it's relevant for that. Ding, it's relevant for that. Ooh, it's very, very relevant for that, right? So all I did with her listing, she had a lot of keyword phrases intact because guess who wrote her listing? Okay, good. So, and, looked great, but this was after selling for a little while, right? So we've identified those page 1 keywords, right? And all we did is change that keyword phrase, put it in her title. She was on page 1 the next day, tripled her sales. So that's it, right? Making that one little change. So, and then what happens with PPC? I have another client who's in the UK, who's done millions in retail sales, unique, awesome product. He came to me and he wanted me to audit his PPC provider. And I do that a lot. I get into people's PPC campaigns. I'm an SEO nerd. Remember that. Like, I love this stuff, right? So I'm looking at his PPC and I'm like, actually, it looks great. Like all of your major keywords are here. You've got placement modifiers here. This looks awesome. Like there's nothing wrong with your PPC. I went and looked at his listings. No keyword phrases in no kind of important order. Not. So what we did, we rewrote his listings, made sure that they were playing to the search engine, super relevant, super in order keywords, right? And what happened? All of a sudden, his PPC ads on page one, top of page one, all over the place, in all the most important places, because now his listing is relevant. So if you're spending a bunch of money on PPC and you're making all your sales from PPC and you're not making organic sales, it's because your listing optimization sucks, guys. Or it's because your product is too competitive. If you can't answer the question, if you're on your page one, but you're not converting, your customer's page one, but you're not converting, and you can't answer the question, why would someone buy from me and not my competition? And you're not showing that in your photos, you're not going to win the war. So in some cases, I have to tell people, look, guys, this product has no potential. Like it doesn't matter if we optimize the heck out of the listing. There's no reason you're in a pricing. There's no reason that a customer is going to buy from you and not the competition. And that is one of the core principles that a lot of people don't understand. And they'll just continue instead of letting go of that dud or making that slight change. It's going to make them stand out on page one. Even changing your packaging and making it retail ready and putting that in your main image can set you apart. So that's really what it comes down to. That tactic alone, that's how you steal market share. You get relevant with your search engine or your customer's page one, and then you make sure your placement rocks and you make sure you're converting. Show me the money. That Jerry Maguire picture is what I put on all my PPC training. Like, show me the money. I don't want to be paying for clicks that don't convert, right? And I want to have amazing organic placement. So those are some strategies too.
I love that. What a great summary. And I love that you shared some practical case studies with us. So many tools that people can use and dive into. And I know you have a lot of courses and teachings that you've shared with that. So I encourage our audience to go check out Amy if you want to dive deeper into everything that she was talking about today. Amy, this has been such a fun conversation. I've learned a lot along the way, and I hope our listeners have too. Before we wrap things up, I love to leave our audience with 3 actionable takeaways from each episode. So here are the 3 takeaways that I noted. Let me know if you think I'm missing something, Amy. All right. So action item number 1 would be understanding your numbers. And so I think that is so crucial for anybody. We've had a few accountants in the past on here. We've had Tyler Jeffcoat with Seller Accountant on here as a recent episode. I would go check out his episode because he lays out the guidelines, maybe some targets that you should be shooting for towards your, what should your average cost of goods sold be based off of your retail price? What should your tacos or your ACoS be, right? And then even what percentage of your total revenue should Amazon fees be, right? And so he gives all of those examples along with what the aggregators or somebody that's looking to acquire your business is looking for in those numbers. So if you have really good numbers that obviously an aggregator or somebody that wants to acquire your business finds interesting, then that means you've got a healthy business. And so I 100% echo what Amy talked about with physical product brands. Cash flow is king. It is so, so important. And if you are paying Amazon to sell your product and you're not making a profit, you're going to go out of business really quick. So if that's a concern and that's on your mind and you don't know exactly how much margin you're making from every product sale at a SKU level basis, start doing that today, because that will fundamentally change your business and allow you to scale to 8 figures and beyond. Action item number 2 is really going back to the supplier and making sure that you look at every component that's going into the manufacturing for your products and evaluating whether you are truly getting the best price. Amy shared a lot of great examples. Make sure you're not just working with like a trading company that's then the middleman between the manufacturer, and you can't have contracts there. She talked about, maybe even diversifying some of your manufacturing so that you don't have all your eggs in one basket. She talked about manufacturing in Mexico. So use those opportunities to try to get the best price possible. And it's not just a chat that you're having, whether it be on Alibaba or WeChat or something like that. Make sure you create relationships with your suppliers. I know for us, our suppliers that we have are our biggest partners in our business. We've been with our main manufacturer for 7 years now, and they are a partner in our business. I want them to succeed because when they succeed, it will allow us to continue to succeed, and vice versa. They want us to succeed because that will drive new business for them. And we have a great relationship with them. So get to that level where you could call up, the owner of your manufacturing partner and give them a call and talk. Because that's what we're able to do with our brand, and it makes a huge difference. Last but not least would be evaluating the markets that you're selling into. Amy, you did a good job of helping everybody answer this question of you need to go in and say, why should somebody buy my product rather than what is currently out there on the market? Now, there's a lot of courses that taught, I think, the Me Too method of, well, just go find a niche that's selling really well. And then go find somebody to private label that product for you, slap your brand on it, and bam, you're just going to be printing these millions of dollars. And there's so much more that goes into it. It's not just, slapping your brand on top of something. It's truly bringing something unique and different to the marketplace. As Amazon gets more and more competitive, that message is going to remain even more important because you're going to need to continue to innovate. One of the interesting things, too, to note on that, Amy, with AI, the introduction of AI and ChatGPT and all of the fun things that AI are going to bring to the world, some people could be fearful and be like, oh, I'm going to lose out to the bots, so to speak. But here's one thing that I've learned is that the AI is not as good with creative concepts as the humans are. Now, eventually that may change, but for the next 5 to 10 years, we as humans are going to be the ones that can innovate faster than the robots can. The robots are really good at taking what's existing and following patterns, but we as humans should be looking at how do we innovate? How do we differentiate? How do we take bits and pieces from other, inspiration to create something new that customers want? So anyways, a boost of encouragement for anybody that's worried about AI in general. But Amy, those are my 3 takeaways from today's episode. Is there anything else you would add?
I think you nailed it. That was such a great summary of everything that we talked about. I would just say that, remember, a lot of people, when they hear me talk about product development and inventing something, they think that they have to invent something to succeed. And I would just say that there's so many different ways to get creative, and the key is in connection with the customer, which AI cannot build a connection, but we can, right? So the key is in that connection. So how can you connect? And that can be through your branding, your packaging. There's so many different ways. You don't always have to invent something new. You can diversify, like we were saying, through just adding different colors or multi-packs or, just different things. Look for those easy ways to expand on what's already.
I love that. That's a good point. You don't have to create something that's never been seen before, but creating something different, right? So I love that, Amy. All right, Amy, I have my final 3 questions I want to go through here with you that I love to ask every guest. So question number 1 is, what's been the most influential book that you've read and why?
So many. I mean, so many along my journey. Of course, like books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad really helped with the mindset in the beginning because, I grew up in a very blue collar family, and I didn't really know that there was this whole other side of freedom. So that was a really great book in the beginning to learn from. And then as I grew in my businesses, anything by Mike McCallowitz was really good, Clockwork. But then the E-Myth Revisited that book really kicked me in the rear and made me realize, it gives so many practical examples of how to grow your team and how to go from self-employed to business owner. And I'm a proud business owner now. I can go on a trip and not bring my laptop. I can, count on my team to run things while I'm gone. And there's so much freedom and so much beauty in that. And so I would encourage anyone who's struggling with that to read the E-Myth Revisited. I think it's by Michael Gerber, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And then on a personal side, the book, The Inner Work by Matt and Ash has done so much for my personal growth, and just realizing that, I am not my thoughts, and that I really, just really helping me grow personally and spiritually and emotionally. And that book has been really a game changer.
Those are awesome recommendations. And I'll second what you talked about there with the E-Myth and Clockwork. Those are some of the best books that I've read to reshape an entrepreneur's mind as to how you need to start working on the business instead of working in the business, with very practical ideas of ways that you can start doing that now. And my goodness, it's made a world of a difference. As my wife and I think, read Clockwork about 2 years ago, and we've slowly been implementing those things into our business. And that's honestly what's allowed us to scale so much faster. All right. Question number 2, Amy, my favorite question here is, what is a new software tool that you've been using in your business, or maybe it's an existing one that you've been using for a while, that you feel is a game changer in the e-commerce space?
Well, you mentioned ChatGPT, and I've been playing around. I've been a Jasper member for, I think, over a year now, and I really have loved that for creating content. ChatGPT, I actually asked it for product ideas the other day, and it gave me some kind of general product ideas, but those help spark my imagination and get me moving. So I thought that was really fun. I've been using ChatGPT a lot lately. There's so many things you can do with it. You can say, write me a Facebook post with hashtags about the following subject, or give me a list of quotes for motivation. Give me a list of motivational quotes, those kind of things. So there's so many cool things you can do with it in terms of creating content for your audience and growing your brand that way. So I've loved playing around with the AI tools. Jasper and ChatGPT have been awesome. But in the e-commerce side of things, I love Smart Scout. I mean, they know I'm one of their super fans. I love that tool. I use it on a lot of consulting calls. What's different about it is they really give you a view into the market that you don't get with any other tool in the e-commerce space. So you can look into subcategories and see who's leading the subcategory. You can actually see what variations are selling better. You can see where your competitors are getting their traffic from. They have a traffic map where you can actually pull up that ASIN and you can see where the strength of different traffic is coming from. And so I do this with clients a lot, where we'll look at, okay, why aren't you selling more than this competitor? What is this competitor? You look like a great choice, and you're both on your customers' page ones. Like, you're awesome. We reverse search these ASINs, and you're ranking for a lot of the same keywords, but what are they doing differently? And that's where I'll bring it up in that traffic map, and we'll go, oh, wow, they've got, a lot more strength coming from accessory products or whatever. So we can change the advertising strategy to match, or work more on external traffic strategies. So Smart Scout, I love those guys. They're really great. They have a seller map too, where you can see what the biggest brands are, and click on that brand, and you can actually see all the products that they're selling. I mean, talk about inspiration, ideas, and I love it. It's great. Check it out.
Amazing. That's a great tool. Great recommendation. All right. Last but not least, who is someone that you admire or respect the most in the e-commerce space that you think other sellers should be paying attention to, and why?
There's so many. There's so many. Oh my goodness. It's so hard. I think that, some of the biggest names that I've learned so much from Really, Joe Reichsfeld, that guy is a legend. He has been, he's been a consultant for many years. He sells on so many and helps clients sell on so many different channels. He has a Pinterest course, like a free Pinterest course that helps you grow your brand. He's got so many awesome marketing strategies. He taught me how to create a web page with a Google Doc. Like, there's just so many great things that you can learn from Joe Reichsfeld. He's been on my podcast a couple of times, and he's always active in the seller group. So definitely check him out. He's really smart, and I love that guy. He's great. And then I would say, oh my gosh, there's so many. For PPC, I love Destiny Wishon and Ritu Java. Those are two of my favorite teachers of PPC strategies. Jared Orkin, he's incredible in terms of teaching about content, everything like that. And his event, AMZ Innovate is really, really awesome. I think, and then there's, of course, Danny McMillan doing seller sessions for so many years, and he's just brought on so many guests, and I've learned a ton from Danny. I could just go on and on and on. There's so many great people in the space for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I know it's hard to pick just one because there are so many great people sharing great actionable advice and content, but I think you gave our listeners a few new ideas or names that we haven't heard on this podcast before. So I hope that's exciting for our listeners. Now, Amy, if people want to reach out to you, they want to maybe take an opportunity to have you take a look at their listings. Where should people be reaching out to you?
Yeah. So if you'd like me to look at your listing free of charge, no strings attached, it's just me being a nerd and looking at different things you can improve. I'll share my screen and just give you a little overview. You can go to amazingathome.com, and underneath the services menu, there's a little thing that says free listing review. So check that out at amazingathome.com and just submit your listing so I can get nerdy. It makes me happy, and hopefully it'll give you some good tips too. And of course, you can always find me on any of the social channels, Instagram, Facebook. I'm at amazingathome. And LinkedIn, I'm there too. But yeah, come visit us anytime at amazingathome.com. Awesome.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, and have a happy new year. And we look forward to continuing to follow you and what you do at Amazing at Home.
Thank you, Josh. Happy New Year to all the listeners out there.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecombreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.